Find the Chaos Emeralds. Tear down the walls between dimensions. Destroy the cartels. You are the key.
I'm here, reaching far across these new frontiers. With my life, fight this fear. In my hands, I hold the ones I love. Walk forward through the showtime. Always to new horizons.
Hey, it's been a while, hasn't it? It's been a long time since I've done anything actually YouTube related, but I have my own reasoning for that I won't really get into. But just know that a lot of stuff has been going on in my life. But that doesn't matter now though. Now, it's time to focus on a certain game that I've been wanting to talk about for a while now. I made 2 videos regarding it last year, stayed up all night at launch waiting for it to release, and now I've completed the game up to the second update that has recently been released. Ever since that first teaser in June 2021, and that Game Awards teaser later in 2021, people had seemed pretty hopeful for Sonic Frontiers. This was honestly a breath of fresh air to see, especially regarding the fact that the last mainline Sonic game had ended. To many, it had seemed that Sega was finally upping the quality control of the blue blur. And then, 2022 came right around the corner. More footage released for Sonic Frontiers, and that's when people were starting to get a bit worried. I won't talk about the 2022 news here since, I already have 2 other videos dedicated to just that, so go check them out if you haven't already done so. Fast forward a couple months and it's almost launch time. Some people have gone to stream and play the game a week or 2 early due to either their stores having copies or by quote-unquote legal means. I admit I was a little bit worried about this game, but I was willing to play it for myself and form my own opinions on the game. After all, that's the whole reason I spent $60 on it. And that time eventually came on November 8th, 2022. I stayed up all night waiting for the game to launch. Ladies and gentlemen, I think it's finally time for me to talk about Sonic Frontiers. Upon booting up the game, you are greeted with an opening cutscene showcasing Eggman toying around with this portal-ish device, inserting something into it to make it spark. We then find out that this device is tied to the Ancients, and just as Eggman thinks his plan has gone through, it ends up backfiring on him. Cut to Sonic, Amy, and Tails on the tornado heading to the Starfall Island in search of the Chaos Emeralds. The 3 also end up getting sucked into a portal similar to that of Eggman, and this is where Sonic Frontiers begins. You are immediately launched into a place that resembles Green Hill Zone, with little tutorials in the level teaching the player how to play. These tutorials are kind of similar to those on Sonic Generations, the little rainbow question mark things. And this is the first time you are prompted to play a cyberspace level in this game, and I have a lot of things to say regarding this game mode, but since this section of the game involves the story aspect of Sonic Frontiers, I'll give my criticisms on this game mode later. After beating this level, Sonic wakes up on the plains of Kronos Island, where he is confused about the whereabouts of his comrades. He hears a voice calling to him, tasking him with finding the Chaos Emeralds and defeating the Titans of each of the Starfall Islands. So Sonic explores the Starfall Islands, defeating each and every Guardian and Titan along the way, uncovering the mystery behind his voice and trying to save his friends. It is here we discover that Sonic's friends have been imprisoned in containers made by this force known as cyber energy, such as Amy for Kronos Island, Knuckles for Ari's Island, and Tails for Chaos Island. It is also here where we meet the game's new featured character, Sage. Sage warns Sonic about the dangers of messing with the Starfall Islands and instructs him to leave. Sonic, being Sonic of course, decides not to leave, which ultimately results in him getting his ass kicked until he realizes, oh shit, I need the Chaos Emeralds to beat these guys. Eggman, on the other hand, is also stuck in cyberspace. We find out sooner or later that Sage is being commanded by Eggman to go after Sonic and make sure that he doesn't get in the way of his plans. I like these two's relationship, even if I didn't really read the memos that you can unlock by fishing with Big. It's honestly pretty heartwarming from what I saw. Back to Sonic, as he makes his way through these islands, him and his friends find out about a species known as the Coco. The Coco are little stone creatures that very resemble the Koroks from Zelda. But anyway, these Cocos help Sonic find the Chaos Emeralds. If Sonic and Co are willing to help them in return. For Kronos, Sonic and Amy are trying to help this one Coco find their true love. For Ari's Island, Sonic and Knuckles help one of the Cocos that was separated from their commander. And for Chaos Island, Sonic and Tails help one of the Cocos find machine parts for a cannon to the Ancients that I was talking about before. These little stories are honestly cool to see in the way that they help bring Sonic and his friends together. And while we're on the subject of Sonic and his friends, I would like to briefly touch on how they are characterized in this game. Sonic himself, I don't really have much of a strong opinion on, but I do appreciate that he takes things a bit more seriously here. Amy is pretty alright too, I like her kind-heartedness. Tails and Knuckles are the interesting cases I want to touch on, however. Tails has a line in particular where he addresses something that the fans have taken issue with regarding his character. I understand some may be mixed on this decision, but I'm personally very interested in seeing where Tails goes forward in terms of characterization. Tails in 2010 Sonic at least was not that good, always relying on that little gadget of his. And I can't forget that infamous Sonic Forces cutscene that started this whole thing. But nonetheless, I have hopes that future Sonic games will finally give Sonic's sidekick the respect that he deserves. Now, it's time to talk about Knuckles, who I believe had the best glow up in terms of characterization on him. For the most part, in 2010 Sonic, Knuckles has been portrayed as this idiotic punching bag, which is a very huge disservice to Knuckles' character. However, in this game, Knuckles' origins and his role of protecting the Master Emerald are actually considered, and he even gets his own 6-minute prequel animation dedicated to explaining how he even got to the Starfall Islands. I won't go into too much detail about this animation since honestly, I recommend that you watch it for yourself, it's great. I also really do like Sonic and Knuckles' bond in this game. They've got a sort of good friendship in this game, which is something that I appreciate a lot. And it's not something you really see in a Sonic game anymore. Knuckles learned something from Sonic's carefree lifestyle, that he doesn't always need to be tied to the Master Emerald. However, this wasn't the first step to the Knuckles renaissance. I'd argue that the latest Sonic movie's interpretation of Knuckles is great too, especially for introducing him to newer audiences. But I'll save that for another day, when I actually do decide to take a look at the Sonic movies from a critical angle. Now without further ado, I think it's time I talk about the climax of the story for Sonic Frontiers. Once Sonic makes his way through Rhea Island, he finds 6 towers and shuts them all down. As he shuts these towers down, the player sees through Sonic's perspective after each boss, and especially now, he has visions of these ancients that I briefly touched on before. These ancients had lived on a planet which had gotten destroyed by an unknown enemy. They had escaped using the Chaos Emeralds to go back to Earth. The enemy followed them there, so they had no choice but to use the 3 Titans. And we can see glimpses of their final battle as Sonic defeats these Titans. Foreshadowing. The solution the ancients saw fit was that they pilot a 4th Titan and trap the enemy inside Earth. These towers that Sonic explores are emitting cyberspace energy, and by shutting them down, Sonic absorbs all of that energy, which takes a bit of a toll on his body. And by a bit, I mean so much that the negative cyber energy engulfs him and he collapses. This leads into the final island and the true climax of Sonic Frontiers, Kronos Island. And the way this island starts is with probably one of the most stupid moments in Sonic history. Okay, so once Sonic has his little cyber energy breakdown thing, his friends sacrifice their physical forms that they regain from Sonic shutting down the towers, and they make a circle around him while sharing words of encouragement towards him. And right then and there, Sonic just goes back to normal. After this scene though is something I do kinda like. Eggman agrees to work with Sonic and has Sage help Sonic out with finding the emeralds. Sonic helps Sage out and finds all the emeralds, transforms into Super Sonic, and then fights the final Titan, Supreme, aka the enemy that the Ancients had to deal with, releasing it from that Titan. And this is where the end comes in. I briefly touched on before is Eggman and Sage's relationship. I really do like their companionship a lot more than his robots, because it feels a lot more heartfelt, like a father and daughter type relationship. She leaves Eggman merging with Supreme in order to help Sonic defeat the true entity behind it all, the End. After Super Sonic fights the End in a Space Invaders-like boss sequence, Sage flies into the End to help him beat the End. Sage asks of Sonic to protect Eggman, and then launches him back into the Earth. Sonic meets up with his friends and they talk about their plans for the future, setting off on the tornado. And this is where Sonic Frontiers ends, for now at least. There are 3 updates for Sonic Frontiers, and one of them will be releasing later this year, focuses on giving the game a new story mode that will allow you to play as Sonic's friends, and a new Sonic form? What? I don't know what to expect for this, but I do have sort of an idea. In a post-credits scene with Eggman, he is working on a computer in which a symbol of the Ancients pops up, and then Eggman hears Sage's voice come from it. I only assume that this means that Sage will be revived by Eggman, but I'll wait until the update releases and we have more of a clear idea of where Eggman is going with this idea. Sonic Frontiers' story is a step in the right direction. I'm glad that the writers are showing a bit more respect and care for the Sonic lore, but I'm also not the biggest fan of some of the decisions that Ian Flynn makes regarding what's canon Sonic and what's not. But now, I think it's time I talk about everything involving the gameplay in Sonic Frontiers. Alright, so Sonic Frontiers gameplay is something new, something that sort of expands on the concept of older Sonic games in a way. There's a lot to unpack in this regard, so let me just get started on the way Sonic controls. Sonic in this game has his signature boost, but more grounded as it's basically the stamina meter from Breath of the Wild. It runs out. He has his jump, slide, kick, and drop dash as well. However, they also bring something new to the table regarding Sonic's gameplay. Meet the Sonic Frontiers combat system. The last time they tried giving a modern Sonic game combat was 15 years ago in Sonic Unleashed with the Werehog, so seeing it come back was a bit surreal to me. The way it works is that Sonic collects Cocos and brings it to the Elder Cocos so that Sonic can unlock more moves in the newly introduced skill tree. The skill tree consists of 12 total unlockable skills, all containing ways for Sonic to approach enemies. Sonic also has a new move known as the Side Loop, where if the button is held, he can trail over anything that he wants to unlock mysteries for puzzles and stuff. If Sonic trails over nothing, he can just get rings from it. And this is really handy because of how Sonic has this new move in which he gets 400 rings. Sonic unlocks this upgrade to his boost, like electricity and this really dumb animation. The game also has various settings which allow the player to adjust it as need be, and these settings also help fix some of the momentum issues that Sonic games usually tend to have. I gotta say, this is a good move in terms of making an experience best fit for longtime Sonic fans. So good on you, Sega. The enemies that Sonic fights in the overworld vary based on where the island takes place. As stated before, there are 5 islands in this game: Kronos Island, Ares Island, Chaos Island, Rhea Island, and Kronos Island. I'm not calling it Uranus Island. Kronos Island is the first island Sonic encounters, a 3D glassy island in which Sonic can explore and look for memory tokens to help rescue his friends, and vault keys which he gets from something new known as Cyberspace. Cyberspace, I briefly touched on before in the beginning of this video, is another game mode present in Sonic Frontiers, in which Sonic goes through short levels all based on the themes of Green Hill, Chemical Plant, Sky Sanctuary, and a new city theme. These levels are real simple. You finish fast, you get an S rank, and the level design in these levels are ripped from other Sonic games such as Unleashed and Adventure 2. So, what are my opinions on Cyberspace? Gotta say, I'm not really the biggest fan of this. It feels kinda lazy to me. The game mode itself can be fun to speedrun, but honestly it's bogged down so much by the unoriginality in the controls. Cyberspace controls awfully, and it's been somewhat improved by the recent updates, but it still kinda suffers from control problems. To beat these levels, you unlock said vault keys, and you use these vaults to get Chaos Emeralds. Once you do all that, you need to progress to an island. Once you do all that you need to progress in an island, and collect all the Chaos Emeralds that you can, which on each island is going to be 6, you are greeted to a cutscene, and then
I'm hanging on to the other side. I won't give up till the end of me.
Sonic is finally cool again! Yay!
That's what we've been waiting for!
It's what we wanted all along!
Alright, now that that's out of the way, it's time to talk about the big elephant in the room. Probably the coolest part about this game. So, Sonic transforms into Super Sonic and is fighting one of the Titans. Frontiers has a day and night cycle, and I strongly recommend that you fight these bosses at night, because it makes for a really epic experience. To fight these Titans, you have to just get their weak spot and repeatedly attack them at that weak spot with your combat moves. It's pretty simple for each of them, which I'm not really the hugest fan of, but this is the way Sonic should go in terms of bosses. Did I talk about the OSTs for these yet? Yeah, these songs are great and just so awesome to hear while you're fighting these bosses. It's so unbelievably hype, which is something that's been missing from Sonic for years now. My favorite song is Break Through It All, if you couldn't tell already. For Giganto, you don't really do much except for parrying and dodging when he occasionally attacks you, and Super Sonic just finished him off in a quick time event. It's just great, man. For Wyvern, you have to wait a bit and parry missiles, and for Knight, you have to dodge his sword's attacks and ride his shield into him. Pause.
Scramble like an egg before you get folded like an omelet, nigga.
So if you're not a fan of the words, peak fiction, goat, raw, fire, click off of the video. Cause those are gonna come up like 50 times in here, man.
Everything I stated before for Kronos Island applies to the rest of the islands too. Ares is just similar but sandier. Chaos is in a volcano setting, and Rhea and Uranos Island are the exact same as Kronos. It just kind of sucks, I'm gonna be real here. I feel like this was done out of production issues, as Kronos and Ares Island are made exceptionally well. I didn't mention Chaos Island because, well, a good majority of it was 2D rather than 3D, which highlights these rush production issues. Another thing I forgot to mention about this game is that it also sees a return of big fishing, as I stated before, but it's a minigame present in each island. Those minigames allow the player to collect items that help you progress through the game, aka you can use it to cheese through a good chunk of some of the game. And I kind of did this with the last island since they have you collect an absurd amount of memory tokens. Sonic does actually fish up some funny items from time to time, like a tire and those piranha thingies from the classic games. And yet again, the music for this minigame is just beautiful. I love it a lot. Each island has two types of enemies that you fight before the Titan. The Guardians that are sort of a mini-boss, and the enemies. These enemies are modeled after some type of futuristic look, which I think is pretty cool actually. They also drop some items that help you. And similar to Breath of the Wild, there's also puzzles for you to solve in each island that also help you progress. I don't like these that much. They're kind of tedious at times, and sometimes they're just too easy, which defeats the purpose of having them. Sometimes they can be somewhat challenging, but that's really once in a blue moon. And if they are challenging, it's like in the most dumb, cheap way ever. Since we're nearing the end of the video, I would like to finally take a moment to talk about this game's climax, gameplay-wise. If you finish the final island, Kronos, you are greeted with the game's final boss, which honestly depends on what game mode you use. If you play this game on hard mode, you'll get an extra final boss, which is something that I wasn't really expecting, to be honest. But if you play in any other game mode, you get the first final boss only. So, I think it would only make sense to talk about the hard mode ending, because it gives you the full picture. The first final boss is Supreme, the fourth Titan, which you fight as Super Sonic, in which the gameplay is the exact same as Giganto, but with a couple more quick-time events. He launches these weird diamond things at you, which are pretty easy to dodge as well, to be honest, and sometimes spits out light constructs for you to parry. I really like how it embraces the whole Sonic games playing the main theme during the final boss stick, since it played I'm Here in this boss. So once Sonic defeats Supreme, up next is the true final boss, the true ending of Sonic Frontiers. And this true final boss is known as the End. The End, as I briefly talked about before, is a boss sequence that greatly resembles Space Invaders. You just shoot and dodge the attacks it'll throw at you, and it has two colored attacks, white and reddish black. You switch out your bullets to match the color of attacks. You know, if the bullets are white, you switch out your bullets for white. If your bullets are reddish black, you switch out your bullets for reddish black. I expect to do this really frequently. This game mode is alright. It's nothing special, and it just doesn't really do it compared to other Sonic bosses. And matter of fact, it's just kind of a letdown compared to what else the game has. It's a pretty tough boss though, so expect to die a couple times while you play. But once you die enough times, you get extra lives, which I think is pretty good for any kids playing the game, or if you're just bad at video games like me. The song used in this fight is really fucking good though. And well, yeah, that's the end of the game. I'm so funny, aren't I?
Hip hip! No! Hip hip! No! Hip hip!
Boo! You stink!
Sonic Frontiers does a lot in its 6 to 12 hour runtime, and I definitely consider it to be a step up from Sonic Forces. This game really shows that they're starting to care about Sonic more and more, and hopefully soon enough we'll be free of games that are just lacking in presentation and in general. Sonic Superstars also releases later this year, and hopefully I'll be able to check that out as well. It is a classic Sonic game though, so it's a given that it'll be good. Frontiers sets out to give us an experience unlike most other Sonic games, and that's one aspect I think it delivered out really well. Only Sonic games I could think of comparing this to are Adventure because it's pretty open, but other than that, there's not really much to compare this to. This game's playstyle, however, needs a lot more to succeed, I'm gonna be honest. The combat is pretty shallow and the game itself is pretty janky. I've seen Mario Kishimoto look at criticism for the game, and with the recent updates, it really seems that Sonic Team is starting to listen. That's great to hear, because listening to the fans, well, the fans that actually give out well thought out critique, is the way to go. Sonic is one of, if not my favorite game franchise, and as someone who's been a long time fan of the series for as long as I can remember, I only just want it to succeed. Sonic has been made fun of for his mishaps, and thus for a large majority of the 2010s, been treated as a joke by people, and the games kinda embrace this too, with the shitty writing. But man, it feels a bit surreal that it's 2023, and there's a new Sonic game in which Sega somewhat listened to our issues. And that's it for Sonic Frontiers, for now at least. We still have one more update to go, which I assume will be releasing later this year. The first two updates add quality of life improvements that, while they should have been in the game, it's better late than never. I'll save all these updates for a future video, but that's really it for now. Thank you guys for watching this video. It's been in the production for a good while now. I've been really busy with life. Your boy's finally growing up now. I just finished driver's ed, I have a fast food job now, and I'm going to be going into my senior year of high school, so that's exciting. But anyway, thank you guys for watching this video, and I'll see you guys next time. This has been Melodic Lemons.